Welcome to your favorite YouTube addiction, but I think the title's already been claimed by Lutheran satire. Anyhow, joke. I'll throw up later when I get this uploaded to YouTube. So anyhow, we are continuing with our story in Matthew with the progression and understanding that the reign of heaven is breaking into earth, that our history is now being brought to. Let me read this. Into our history. It is known to us and interfering with the course of our lives. I know people will say interfere, that's bad, but let's face it, if God didn't interfere in the course of our lives, we would be going to hell. So here we go, up with that story. The reign of heaven is breaking into our history. He just had a little showdown with Satan, and he's getting ready to start doing ministry things. Here we go. Chapter 4, verses 12-16. This is Jesus had been baptized. This is after he's been tempted by Satan. And the angels have administered to him. Yeah, we did kind of skip over that little verse. After Jesus' little thing with Satan and his batting and whatnot, and did come and minister to him, and what that means. But we have this transition, and that is the verses 12 through 16. It's referring to Jesus, of course. Herod had been arrested. He drew into Galilee, and leaving Nazareth, he went and lived in Capernaum by the sea, in the story of Zebulun and Naphtali. So it was spoken by the prophet Isaiah might be fulfilled. The land of Naphtali, the way of the sea beyond the Jordan, the Galilee of the Gentiles. The dwelling in darkness have seen a great light. For those in the region and shadow of death, on this light has dawned. Okay. This is a period of transition. John is bowing out and Jesus is stepping up. Bowing out is not the most desirable way to bow out. Usually when people bow out, they like to go into a retirement, be able to do a little golfing and that kind of stuff. John is handed over to the earthly authorities. They, of course, really his preaching was this whole idea of the reign of heaven was interfered with their earthly rule, because the people were looking for this Messiah, the Son of David, to come, and going to be the end of days when he came. And well, that kind of is if you want to be, king right now. Greater than you's coming, and if they're greater than you, well, nobody likes to be below him. Totally. So anyway, the thing to note is that God is handed over. This isn't it's not an work of the arresting authority. They allowed to be taken. He's given into their bond, so to speak. Not anything John did, but going to be indicative of how the reign of heaven is breaking our history. It's not an conflict, but it's an act of sacrifice. In some ways, John being handed over to the authorities mirrors what is going to happen later in the gospel. And it's a pattern to me with the story of Jesus. He's going to be handed over to the authorities so they can purpose of crucifying him. God does, in a sense, mirror that action, that this is what's happening. And it's over to Herod. It's over to those people. And they allow to kill him. And we realize, I mean, the Old Testament prophet, they have a pleasant end. There is a reason why we have not been able to find the old prophet's home over in the Holy Land. And not to go into a retirement that was not more permanent in nature. So, but we all have a transition going on here with not bowing out and Jesus stepping up. We basically have the handing off of the Old Testament prophets to the fulfillment, which they've been preaching about for centuries, millennia. They've been talking about what they've been proclaiming, what they've been telling people is going to happen, is now happening. Really, can't much more clear than he does. Right? In this transitional period, as we are moving from the testimony of John, as we are moving from the testimony of an Old Testament prophet, we are moving into the testament ministry of Jesus, we get Matthew fashion, and this was to fulfill the prophecy that was spoken by the prophet Isaiah. Up into this region of Galilee, he heads up to this city of Capernaum. It's up the area, at least, okay, and does deal directly with prophecy. A little about this prophecy by Isaiah, and it was in a time of turmoil. It's also during a time when the kingdom of Israel was split up. Zebulun and Naphtali were tribal areas of the northern kingdom, and they were some of the first to fall when God started allowing the nation of Israel to collapse, basically. The Assyrians came and ransacked the area and sent these tribes off into exile. So these tribes that have been decimated, they've been torn apart, they've been sent and scattered across the world, beat up. And prophesies that there's to be a pattern of God among them. These folks beaten up, who've been scattered, who've been trashed, who've been threshed, and there, it's incredible. It's into their history, basically, and bring their into their darkness. And it'll leave an Old Testament Hebrew and nothing more dark than to be separated from the land which God has given to you. It was such a punishment for them to be cut out of the land. Seriously. But it's a little bit of a background. Folks who are not really familiar with the history of the Testament. Solomon, of Israel did not hold together. The descendants of Solomon apart, right? A brother versus brother. And the nation was divided into two. One Israel and the other was called Judah. For the kingdom of Judah was largely made up of the tribe of Judah, and it is within that southern kingdom, Judah, that Jerusalem and Bethlehem, those places were found, and so fitting that with this of Judah left, the guy Judah, that the scepter would never leave his hand. Well, the royal city, the city that he chosen to make his dwelling at, Jerusalem remained in Judah. The kingdom with Ephraim. So if you're reading through the Old Testament and you come across this word Ephraim, that's what that means. It's referred to this northern kingdom. Here. This the north. And they're kind of the and there was some maneuvering that was going on at the time, and a lot of response to whether they're afraid of getting invaded by somebody. They were a small country, and there was these great generals going around doing all this conquering. So there was who they ally themselves with so that they could be safe. Of course, the way of saying, look, you guys don't actually trust me. Why Egypt? The kingdom wanted Egypt to protect them because they remembered Egypt as big and strong. Of course, as Egypt was conquered, it's to the strongest at some point. Somebody stronger comes along. But maneuvering, it's not entirely important for the course of battle, although it does a few of the things that are going on, and the destruction of Zebulun and Naphtali. Say a few times really fast. So taking this prophecy and building to get a bit of a ideal here. Is here highlighting as showing up in the region that would have been doing their thing is here. This is the place where John was doing his baptizer thing, and now that G is drawing to. G long ways away after that his cousin had been handed over and arrested. I will say this do Israel fitting into the size of the state of Pennsylvania. like here. So, but still, Jesus does withdraw a long distance away. And his thing up there. And, word of mouth is incredible. Because we're going to see here in maybe next week, is that people from all the way down in Jerusalem to this region of Galilee, they hear this guy speak. And seriously, they're doing what? So Jesus up there, and Matthew tells us this fulfillment of prophecy. Specifically, we're talking Isaiah chapter 9, verses 1 through 2. Gloom for her who was in anguish. In the first time he brought into contempt the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. But in time he made glorious the way of the sea, the land beyond the Jordan. Galatians, the people of darkness have seen a great light. Both in the land of darkness, light has shined. So, Jesus building this specific project, really cool thing, and this is really drawing together the whole first section of Matthew. Their passage in verses, chapter 9, verses 1 through 2. Another Emmanuel passage, another God with us passage. Passage that if you have any remote familiarity with Handel's Messiah, you have heard many times. And the one says, "For unto us a child has been born, and upon his shoulders shall be the and he'll be Counselor, wonderful, all these wonderful things." And hands it to us ad nauseum. Good stuff, but a lot. And this is the passage that is in an immediate context, we fulfilled of being in the land of Zebulun, in the land of Naphtali. And if you are from past discussions, when the New Testament writers say something from the Old Testament, he expects you to go back, look it up, read everything that's in the context, and understand it that way. So, Matthew tells us that this is being fulfilled, and hey, look, it's us. That, as the Son is given, to us a child is born. Well, the child is up in the land of Zebulun and Naphtali. He's the guy who's up there preaching. And he is bringing to an opening portions of his gospel. And he's tuning us into this time of ministry that Jesus is going to be doing. And that in that time of transition, where Father Hugh, who has been setting this justice of Jesus, this beginning of Jesus, that is now done. Now we are getting into what the reign of heaven is going to be. We're at, and this prophecy, it helps us connect together. It's basic tying the knots on the package. So we have that whole unity of the reign of heaven is God coming down in the heavens, rendering them open for us, and the prayers of his people, and he's come to deliver them. And as deliverance, he is going to be doing certain things so that we can understand that it is him doing his thing. It is And so to the beginning of Jesus' ministry. Matthew 17 to 22. From that began to preach, saying, Repent, for the reign of heaven is at hand. While in the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who was called Peter, and his brother, cast into the sea, for they were fishermen. They follow me, and I will you fishers of men. Immediately their nets and followed him. And going up there, he saw two other brothers, son of Zebedee and John, his brother, in the boat. Zebedee, their father, met their nets, and he called them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Okay, so drew into that region and he begins preaching, and John was preaching. For the kingdom of heaven is at hand. The reign of heaven is at hand. Still preaching that message of conversion. He's still preaching that you have sinned, that you are not worthy of God's favor, that you've judged, you've broken commandments, you've stolen, you've done all these horrible things God told you not to do. And you haven't told you to do. Get stuck for it. Acknowledge it. Preaching it. Now, in Greek, really, it does give kind of a sense of irony. It also can mean stands near. And commentary I use a lot is he makes an argument that we should be translating it as stand near. In some ways, really, we ought to, because, seriously, what is Jesus? Who is he? He is the embodiment of the reign of heaven, and he's preaching that the reign of heaven is here. It is at hand. It's standing near you. And seriously, ironic, is it? I mean, how funny. Who said God doesn't have a sense of humor? And in front of you, the reign of heaven, and he stands near. Do you see him? Is the embodiment of the heaven. Matthew's been trying to make this clear throughout the entire first section that this is the heaven happening right here. Is this man Jesus? In this whom God has called his beloved Son. This one God has called Israel and called out of Egypt and called to do his work, to do that reign of heaven thing, to fulfill all righteousness. He's standing right there, and he's calling you to acknowledge you need me. People to acknowledge their sin and their need for forgiveness. He is, at this point, continuing John's message, but the message changing because of who Jesus is. Okay. No pointing forward, pointing towards that reign of heaven, but the reign of heaven is standing right before their eyes. And what Jesus is preaching. And as he's doing this, Jesus isn't just sitting around, just hanging. He is calling people, and people are responding. And to the call of his disciples. All the Gospels do feature a call narrative. And this is going to focus on what the overall Gospels focuses. And Matthew is going to know different. Matthew is trying to emphasize Jesus' authority at this point. So see him give the men a command, and they just get up and follow. I'll shed a little bit more light on what has been going on Um, I heard that Peter and Andrew, they'd already heard of Jesus. They'd already been hearing and listening to him. They just, uh, they were the preaching that was going on. They had heard John and preaching. The Holy Spirit has already been working on these guys. But Matthew really wants to emphasize that this authority like no other, that this is the reign of heaven happening. So again, about the whole authority thing right now. And so we get a whole emphasis that Jesus sends them to come follow him, and they do. This is what is happening here. Jesus knows these guys. He says to them, all right, it's time. Come follow me. Now, one of to make it clear before we wrap up for today, this is not an evangelism text. Okay? If he preaches this as a text for evangelism, yeah. Jesus, this is that we could just rip out of its context. This isn't something that we could rip out of its story and go, hey, Jesus called these men and he said, I'll make you into fishers of men. Now you go be fishers of men. No, we can't do that. Because we have to notice is not all of the child, not all of the apostles, the 12 that in our circle were sent. Okay? Not to say they didn't preach the gospel. This isn't to say that they didn't proclaim the goodness. So to speak. So the book of Acts that he was sent. He did do some traveling throughout the Mediterranean. We even made it into Rome at one point. So we know he was sent. And it has it that Andrew was one of the ones who went off and did some things. But this spoken of here is likely the one that was killed in the book of Acts. So we can't, okay, everybody's going to be fishers of men. No. We can kind of a microcosm. Some are going to be sent, some are, but all are called to be ready to defend and proclaim the gospel. So this is an evangelism text. This is going to bring me into another thing that I probably should have addressed from the very beginning. Who have been watching this, who have been participating in this, may have been thinking, okay, so we're getting all this great information about the book of Matthew, all this great things about what Matthew has to say, but apply this to my life. And this and you can say, how do I apply this to my life? You're asking the wrong question. This book, it's about you. The question is, who is Jesus? What is he doing? What accomplished? How done this? It's questions. It's not answering, well, how do I be a better Christian? It's not answering how I love my neighbor more. It's not giving us a whole bunch of waterfalls. It's not giving us a whole bunch of life applications. To be sure, things that can be learned from these texts have a universal application. But the biggest is it's trying to tell you about Jesus. Inserting yourself into the story where you don't really belong by trying to ask that question, how does this apply to me, you're going to treat the text. Let's not, okay? So, moment that we're going to draw to a close today, because if I head into the next section, I will just immediately. So, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to hear them now. If not, I usually say you can email, Facebook me, message me, whatever, and I will try to address them the following week. All right, and I'll say see you next week.